Alright guys, now that we took our text file, took each of these pieces of data and stored it in separate variables, we can go ahead and insert that information into our tables. Now we don't have any tables created yet. Remember, we only created a database, but that isn't going to be important, and it's going to be cool what I'm going to show you guys, so stay tuned. So, why is it that as soon as I start a tutorial, I immediately start getting freaking phlegm in my throat? I don't know. But anyways, the very first thing we want to do is we want to run a query to test if the table already exists for the company. And why do we want to do that? Well, say we decide that we want to add a new company to this. Well, we don't know if we need to create a table because that company wouldn't exist yet, or if a table already exists and there's information, we would just need to insert information. So we need to go ahead and figure that out. Is there a table already for this company? So my first query is going to read like this. Select all, and the keyword in MySQL for all is star, from, and remember, whenever we created this function, we passed in a name of the table. Now the name of the table is just going to be the same as the ticker signal. So go ahead and say select all from Google or select all from Yahoo, and this is either gonna return a couple things. Let's go ahead and store. Let me don't want to make a type. Sometimes I can't talk whenever I'm typing, but let's go ahead and store the query inside of let's go variable name result. So let me go ahead and run my SQL underscore query, and this is going to take the string of text. And remember, SQL is only a string of text right now, and it's going to run it as a MySQL query. So it's going to run this as a MySQL query and store the result in a variable named result. Now this is either going to come back, it's going to come back false if there is no result, or true if there is a result. So what we need to do is we need to make an if statement to pretty much say, okay, if there was no result, forgot my little dollar sign there. So if there was no result, then there must have been no table for the company. And I'll tell you why. Let me explain this. I probably should have done this before. If a table already exists for Yahoo and we say select all from Yahoo, then the query is going to run successful and result is going to be true. So therefore, this code is never going to run because we say if result is false, only run this code. So say we have a new company that's getting created for the first time and no table exists for it. If no table exists for Google already, it's going to say select all from Google. Well, whenever it tries to query, it's going to say, dude, there is no Google, and result's going to be false. So that is why we want to create a table only if result is false, because that would mean that no table exists already. So in order to create a table in MySQL, what you want to do is, let me just go ahead and copy this beast right here. Copy, and let me just go ahead and delete everything inside there and name this SQL2, because whenever you're looking at your queries, I don't like to name any variable the same thing in any file, so that's why I'm doing that. Now in order to create a table, go ahead and hit create, let me make sure I spelled that right, table, and right after this you write the table name of your table. And since the table name is the same of the ticker, we're just going to go ahead and write create table name. This is going to create a table name called Yahoo, Google, Netflix, whatever. So it's going to create a table named this. Now after this you write parentheses, and inside the parentheses you write, okay, what do you want that column to be named, and what type of information is that? So we want a column to be named date, and it's going to hold date information. That's actually a data type. That's what I meant, not type, what data type. Now we want this to be the primary key, because check this out. If you're familiar with MySQL, you know that every row should have a unique identifier. Now usually you have a separate primary key or user ID if you ever made a game. Now the only thing that is unique on each one of these rows is the date. It can have the same open, high, low, close, volume, but it can never have the same date. You never have two rows with the same date. So that is why I want to make the date the primary key. So go ahead and write primary key and just go ahead and write date like that. That is how you set something to a primary key through a query. So now we have date. Now let's see what we have. Open, high, low, close, and volume and all that stuff. Alright, so after date we have open, and open is going to be a float. Now a float is just something with decimal points. It's not an integer because it can have like a percentage. Now open is a float, high is a float, and let's see, low is a float. Scroll this bad boy over. Low is a float, and then I have close is a float, and then let's see, volume. Now check this out. Remember I said that volume is basically the number of shares or the number of trades that were made during the day. This can only be an even number. You can't make like 2.5 trades. It's either you trade or you don't. So this one I'm going to make an integer. So volume int. Now amount. Let me just go ahead and copy this. Amount change. This is going to be, if I can scroll over, amount change is going to be a float. And also, I think the last thing I have is percent. Did I name that percent or percentage? Percent change. This is also going to be a float. So now what you want to do is just go ahead and end your line and go on to the next line. Now I'm actually going to check my query real quick because I'm scared. Date primary key, open float, high float, low float, close float, volume minute, percentage float. So now you know behind the scenes of what I sound like whenever I'm checking queries. Embarrassing. So now what we want to do is, remember, this isn't a query. We didn't query anything yet. We didn't run anything through MySQL. All this is right here is a string of text. In order to actually query it, you have to use the MySQL underscore query function, and now we pass a string in there, and that runs whatever string as a query. So now that we have that, we need to say, okay, if you didn't have a table already, then go ahead and create a table. That's all we did right here. So the only thing we have left to do is say, okay, so by the time we get to this point, whether a table was created right here or if one already existed, we want to take the information that was stored in these variables from our array, and we want to actually insert it into the database, into the tables. So in the next tutorial, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be finishing up this function, and I'm going to show you guys how to actually insert the data into the database. Hint, it's very similar to this, just the syntax is a little bit different. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, yada yada yada. I'll see you next time.